Well, with Americans on relief rolls, why bring in foreigners?
The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 is the most comprehensive reform of our immigration laws since 1952.
Tonight, along a roadway in southern Mexico, a seemingly endless stream of people making their way on foot towards the United States.
Did you know that illegal immigration has been a problem for 100 years? Yeah, neither did I. At least, I didn't. For one day, I was sitting in my parents' car, relaxing and listening to some old-time radio show. I think it was either the Jack Benny or the Bob Hope program. But in their lineup of skits, they were making fun of, you guessed it, illegal immigration. And they were complaining that the government wasn't doing enough to stop it. But at the time, I was so confused of hearing that, because I thought it was only a recent problem. I thought it was only something that happened in the last 20 or 30 years. And that got me thinking, just how long exactly has illegal immigration been a problem? As it turns out, almost 100 years to the day. Now, despite how convoluted our politics is, it's all pretty straightforward, starting primarily with the Immigration Act of 1924 and continuing with the Bracero Program in 1942, which was a labor agreement to import Mexican workers during World War II to work on farms, factories, and build railroads for the American population, since so many citizens were focusing on the ongoing war effort. And shock of all shocks, it ended with workers being abused, and hundreds of thousands, perhaps over a million, workers willfully overstaying their visas. And once companies got a taste of that sweet, cheap labor, they were hooked.
Hello! I like money!
They had to do less paperwork, offer lower wages and fewer protections, and the workers, they just had no incentive to leave. This sounds strangely familiar. And just like now, even though there were bipartisan elements, it was created and expanded by Democrat Party leadership during the reign of FDR. And just like now, a Republican administration of Dwight Eisenhower tried to solve the problem with mass deportations. Strange how times just haven't seemed to change, huh? But before I get into that, if you like this episode of Balance Takes, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Now, normally I do cultural takes on topics like this video, or even info dives on niche topics, like this video talking about how Americans can't read, or this other video comparing two ads of Volvo and Jaguar. And I've heard Jaguar's really messed up their brand lately. But if none of these videos are enough to gain your undying fealty, that's alright. I'll just go back in time and whisper full plot spoilers of every popular show and movie into your dreams. Now have fun with the paranoid levels of deja vu. And with that, let's get back to the video. Earlier, I briefly mentioned the Immigration Act of 1924, and prior to this, from what I understand, there wasn't a ton of immigration issues because it wasn't entirely being tracked. But in the shadow of World War I, with Europe in shambles both politically and culturally, the United States desired to have greater control over who entered the country. Some say it was based in eugenics and racism, while others simply said it was to prevent a flood of Europeans from entering the country and watering down our identity. But however or whyever it was enforced, it was to keep primarily Europeans from destabilizing the country with mass immigration. Now, as I mentioned in my intro, legal immigration ramped up after World War II as a result of the Bracero Program. Now, this came in the form of overstayed visas, and this is one of the first instances of the United States creating a massive underclass of individuals to provide cheap labor. Well, at least since slavery. We don't talk about that. Now let's jump to the 1960s. From the 40s to the 60s, legal and illegal immigration continued to be a problem as farmers and agricultural lobbies supported the cheap and easy labor. By then, a litany of factions from both Democrat and Republican states supported it, as a sudden removal of their labor base would spell certain doom for them financially. Now before I continue, one thing you will consistently notice about legal and illegal immigration from the 1920s until now is that it has consistently been about foreign labor, and both parties wanted it. But of course, the problem is that by the 1960s, there was no backdrop of World War II to actually require a massive influx of foreign labor to subsidize our manufacturing or food production. The sad reality is, American businesses have just become addicted to it, and many mistreated their workers with unsafe working conditions, wage theft, and poor housing. Mexico, on the other hand, was pretty happy with it, as it reduced the pressure on their economy that unemployment brought, all the while bringing in a continuous flow of those beautiful American dollars from workers sending their money back home. And as far as the workers were concerned, it was better than what they had at home. So comparatively, that was just life for them. And it wasn't until 1964 that President Lyndon B. Johnson finally ended the gravy train that was the Bracero Program, a full 22 years after its inception. Talk about government programs never going away. And that brings me to likely the most controversial event of all, and that was the 1980 1986 bill signed by President Ronald Reagan, the Immigration Reform and Control Act, which granted amnesty to over 3 million illegal aliens, which, in order to qualify, had to prove they had lived in the United States continuously since before January 1st, 1982, have no serious criminal record, and pay fines, back taxes, and demonstrate knowledge of United States civics. It also created special provisions for seasonal agricultural workers, and all the while this was framed as compassionate and practical, calling those who had built lives in the United States Americans in their hearts. But it wasn't all lollipops and sunshine. It also became illegal for employers to knowingly hire undocumented workers. Who put that in there? People who had crossed the border illegally or had overstayed their visas. Said employers were required to verify the worker's legal status using the I-9 form. If you cut off the job magnet, then illegal immigration would slow down. And alongside that, the law increased funding for Border Patrol and improved border surveillance technologies. The idea was if you paired amnesty with tight future enforcement, you'd avoid a situation of what you had before. But as we live now in the future of 2025, we know it did nothing of the kind. In reality, employers, especially those in factory or agricultural industries, continue to hire illegal immigrants in massive numbers. Fraud went rampant, Border Patrol did next to nothing, especially in Democrat administrations. And worst of all, people from all over the world now saw this as a signal that if they could just get into that shining city on the hill and camp there long enough, its kind and beneficent inhabitants will eventually bestow citizenship alongside a slap on the wrist. And it made sense. That was a golden opportunity to find work, avoid crime-ridden nations, get away from conflict and war, and enter the best country on the planet without being vetted or having to even qualify for entry. Yes, for many it was a harrowing trip either across oceans or seas or land, but to them, it was worth that risk. Now fast forwarding to 1996 when illegal immigration is still a problem, we find President Clinton signing the IIRA. Who's naming these things? I hate congressional nomenclature. The Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act of 1996. And this drastically toughened United States immigration law by expanding deportation for minor crimes, imposing penalties like the 3 and 10-year re-entry bans, which doesn't mean anything if they just sneak back across the border, and made plans for border surveillance and barriers on the southern border. Keep in mind, it made plans for them, just like the Reagan's plan made funding for Border Patrol and surveillance. It didn't actually do it. It also laid the foundation for mass detention, expedited removal, and the modern deportation system as we know it, making it more difficult for illegal aliens to gain citizenship or legal status if removed. Now, since then, you probably know the rest of the story. I won't go into all the details. We've had 9/11, wave after wave of failed immigration reform bills, accompanied by a tidal wave of foreign migrants crossing the border illegally for the past several decades. Now, yes, most illegal aliens and visa overstays did come from Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America, but in recent years, proportions from other countries have been steadily increasing. Because why not? There's wars all over the world. If you can manage to get into the United States, why not make the trek? Honestly, if I lived in some country like Syria, Mexico, or El Salvador, or even Venezuela, I'd try it too. I'd be looking out for myself and my family. And if millions of others can get into the United States, then so can I. Just one more drop in the ocean won't make a difference, right? Right? Now, in my opinion, the core problem needs to be addressed, and that has been the problem for the past century. I surmise that this is a root of a lot of our political and economic issues, but we just don't realize it because we no longer have any proper, full contextual framing. Entire generations have come and gone without ever knowing what an economy would be like without a class of foreign workers supporting it. Now, I'm not one to necessarily be all gung-ho for America for Americans style politics. Honestly, it doesn't appeal to me. So if you're about to type a bunch of comments down there in the comment section, I mean, have at it, I guess, but it's just not me. But at some point, it does become clear that there's a major problem, and that is the allure for businesses to prefer foreign workers over Americans, even to the point that they are willing to willfully break the law to get them. The agriculture and construction industries are absolutely riddled with illegal foreign labor, especially in places like California, Texas, and Florida. We have no concept of what it's like for our children to grow up having those quote-unquote low-skill labor jobs. And our entire economy and culture is geared to just assume that someone who's working on your drywall or resurfacing your driveway is just going to be some guy who doesn't speak English. And I don't think that's right. I don't think we should just assume that people who came into the country illegally are just going to be here in perpetuity. That brings a lot of problems with assimilation and cultural identity. I want people from other countries to come here, but I want them to come here and have our ideas, not their ideas. I frankly don't care about other countries' ideas. I don't. We have enough ideas of our own here that I don't think should belong. So I don't really want to import problems from another country to also deal with. Now, to solve this, many advocate for another reform bill similar to the one that Reagan passed, but unless we fix the actual magnet for illegal migration in the first place, the problem will not be resolved. It'll just be a rehash of the problem we had in, 1986. The solution will require a major crackdown on companies hiring illegal aliens, as well as strict border surveillance. I don't mean just plans for it. I mean actually doing it. I didn't even get into the drugs and human trafficking that has been rampant for the last decade on our southern border, but both of those are entire industries, which the supposed kindness of the American people has facilitated in our naivety and unwillingness to act. If those two problems are resolved, severe penalties for companies hiring illegal aliens and visa overstays, and strict border surveillance and border patrol, then and only then would I be willing to consider a case-by-case consideration of who should and shouldn't stay. Maybe. Otherwise, I'm for mass removals. Consequences for crime exist for two reasons: justice for the victim, and deterrence for more of that crime. We cannot merely take complicated issues in society and just blanket them with kindness. Kindness for kindness' sake is not kindness. It's drinking our own damage and destruction. Not only is there an entire subclass of millions of illegal aliens, of whom we do not know the origins or intentions, the government is also allowing American citizens to do nothing about other countries in our hemisphere. Yes, that's right. I do believe America has a responsibility to care about our neighbors, and not through government action, but rather through charities, missions, and military contractors. In other words, people should be working with the people from other countries like Mexico and El Salvador to help resolve these problems. And if governments won't accept that help, then allow their problems to be their problems. That's their choice. We shouldn't be shipping foreign governments tons of money to try to shore up the stability in their country. Most of that money is being shuffled through our bureaucracy, and then shuffled through their bureaucracy, and by the time it gets to whatever program that may or may not work on the ground, it's dubious as to whether it's going to actually solve the problem in the first place. Especially since the stability problem with a lot of countries isn't actually an economic one. There's a case can be made that it's economic, but the reality is that it's a consequence of immoral people making immoral decisions, and money doesn't solve immorality. But that's a conversation for another video. We should continue to dismantle funding through agencies like USAID and re-incentivize missions and churches to go in and do the dirty job on the ground of reinvigorating their societies. If those countries need stability, allow military contractors, or at most, limited military partnerships with their governments to try to make things more stable. But the solution isn't to simply allow a constant stream of a de facto slave labor class propping up industries so that we can produce cheaper products. Now, let me be clear. Illegal immigrants are not slaves. Mostly, they are result of a relationship beneficial to both the employer and the employed. But the reality is, the employer is benefiting from paying their workers less, mistreating them, and not offering benefits or stable employment. There's a reason American workers aren't hired. And I do not believe the mantra of, oh, Americans just don't want jobs, so we have no choice. If that is a problem in a particular industry, then pay them more. And if workers don't work hard enough, fire them. If an industry cannot survive without illegal foreign labor paid under the table, then it shouldn't exist. Hire Americans or hire out legal foreign labor. But ideally Americans. I'm not about to get into H-1B visas. One thing I am definitely for is personal responsibility. And part of that personal responsibility is caring about the people around us. That means our neighbors. And yes, that does mean other countries. If you want to help other countries, then you do it. You personally. I don't even mean that as an insult. I mean literally. Make it your life goal to help other people. Don't just believe in a government sending another government other money under 15 different tiers of programs to make things better. You personally go make a difference. Yes, that will require leaving your job and probably even going to a foreign country and relying on their culture and whatever crazy things are going on. But seeing it in person will give you a perspective that just letting your taxes be passively collected and shipped off never will. The door of free will in the United States has been open for almost a century. And in my opinion, it's time for it to close. Just as we expect other countries to do what is in their best interest, what is in our best interest is for our children to grow up willing to do low-level labor, and for other countries' people to respect our immigration laws. Because if the door has just been open for a century, then it's not a door anymore, it's a breach. And don't be surprised when eventually the people who have been coming across the border for 100 years all of a sudden think it's their home too. Now, I know this video is more heavy than normal, and I apologize for that, but I feel like this is an issue that's really important. There are a lot of things I cut out for time's sake, but I really hope you hear my heart and realize that this just isn't an issue that is black and white either way. It isn't as simple as just kicking everyone out and locking the door, and it isn't as simple as merely allowing everyone to stay that want to stay. As always, it requires a bit of nuance. But anyway, thank you for stopping by. Feel free to check out some other videos, but those are just my thoughts. So what are yours? Let me know in the comment section your compliments or criticisms, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!